Tonight, we're going to explore something that changes how you see the planet beneath your feet. We're talking about a world so alien, so fundamentally different from anything on land, that scientists who study it use the same language they'd use to describe exploring another world entirely. This isn't speculation or science fiction. These are real observations from one of the most extreme environments we've actually explored. And here's what makes it extraordinary. This alien world isn't billions of miles away. It's right here, covering most of our planet just beneath the waves. By the end of this, you'll understand why the ocean floor might be the closest thing to visiting another planet without leaving Earth. Before we start, if you enjoy these explorations into the genuine mysteries of our world, a like or subscribe helps me keep making them. Now let's descend. Let's start with something familiar. You know what it's like to swim underwater. You've probably been to a pool, maybe the ocean, felt what it's like to hold your breath and dive down. At 10 feet deep, you can feel the pressure in your ears. Everything looks blue-green. Light filters down from above. You can see the surface, that bright boundary between water and air, and you know exactly where you are. Now imagine going deeper, 20 feet, 30 feet. If you're scuba diving, you might go down to 60 or 80 feet. The light dims, but it's still there. You can still see colours, still orient yourself, still recognise that you're in water on planet Earth. But this familiar experience breaks down completely when you go deeper. Because the ocean doesn't stop at 80 feet. It keeps going, and going, and going. The average depth of the ocean is 12,000 feet, more than 2 miles straight down. The deepest point, the Mariana Trench, plunges down nearly 7 miles. At these depths, everything you know about being underwater stops applying. The rules change, the physics change, life itself has to reinvent how it works, and what exists down there, what we've discovered in the tiny fraction we've explored, reads like a catalogue of alien life forms. Here's the thing that makes the deep ocean so profound. We've barely seen any of it. In May 2025, a comprehensive study quantified exactly how much of the deep seafloor humans have actually observed with our own eyes. Through cameras, through any visual technology, the number is staggering. Less than 0.01%. That's not 1%, that's 1/1000th of 1%. To put that in perspective, if you took the area of Rhode Island and shrank it to represent the entire deep ocean floor, the part we've actually seen would be smaller than a single football field. We've compiled data from over 43,000 deep-sea dives conducted since 1958. Every expedition, every submersible descent, every remotely operated vehicle mission. All of it combined has allowed us to visually observe an area roughly 1/10 the size of Belgium. The deep ocean covers 2/3 of our planet, and we've seen almost none of it. Think about that. We have better maps of Mars than we do of our own ocean floor. We've sent robots to crawl across another planet, but we've barely glimpsed the seafloor beneath our own waves. And every time we do venture down there, every single time, we find things we didn't expect, things that challenge what we thought we knew about how life works. Here's where the alien world begins, with darkness. Total, absolute, permanent darkness. Let's build up to it step by step so you can understand just how fundamentally different this is from anywhere on land. Start at the surface. Sunlight penetrates water, but not the way it moves through air. Water absorbs light. The deeper you go, the less light remains. In clear ocean water, you can see bright sunlight down to about 30 feet. This is where most recreational diving happens. Colours are vivid. You can see fish, coral, the bottom if it's shallow enough. This feels like Earth. This feels familiar. Keep descending. At 60 feet, the light has dimmed noticeably. The reds start disappearing first because red wavelengths don't penetrate water well. Everything takes on a blue-green tint. This is still recognizable as underwater. You're still in a world lit by the sun. At 100 feet, it's noticeably darker. You'd want a flashlight even during the day. Professional divers work at these depths, but it's getting to the edge of where humans comfortably operate. At 200 feet, you're approaching the limit of where sunlight can sustain plant life. Photosynthesis becomes impossible. Below this point, no sunlight-dependent life can survive. This boundary, around 200 meters or 650 feet deep, marks the beginning of the deep sea in scientific terms. And here's what happens next. Darkness. Not the darkness of a moonless night on Earth, not the darkness of a cave where you can eventually see a distant opening. Absolute darkness. Darkness that has existed since the ocean formed billions of years ago. Darkness that no amount of waiting will let your eyes adjust to because there is zero light. None. Let me put this in perspective. Everywhere on land, even in the darkest cave, even in the deepest mine shaft, you're never more than a few miles from sunlight. You could theoretically walk to the surface, but in the ocean, you can be sitting in total darkness with 6 miles of water above you, 6 miles of permanent night between you and the sun. The deepest cave on Earth is about 1.25 miles deep. The deep ocean is 5 times deeper than that on average, in some places more than 5 times deeper. Think about what this means for life. Every single living thing you've ever seen depends directly or indirectly on the sun. Plants use photosynthesis. Animals eat plants or eat animals that eat plants. Even in caves, bat guano comes from bats that flew outside to feed. Even in the deepest underground lakes, nutrients seep down from the surface. The entire web of life on land connects back to sunlight. But below 200 meters in the ocean, there is no sunlight. Has never been sunlight. Will never be sunlight. And yet life exists there, thrives there. The deep sea is the largest ecosystem on Earth, and it's one that had to evolve completely different rules. Scientists estimate that up to 80% of all life on Earth actually lives in the ocean, and most of the ocean is deep ocean. Most of life on Earth exists in permanent darkness, in an environment that would kill a human in seconds. We are the aliens, they are at home, but darkness is only the beginning of what makes the deep ocean alien. There's something else at work down there, something that affects every atom, every molecule, every living cell: pressure. And the pressure at the bottom of the ocean is beyond what our land-evolved brains can easily comprehend. Let's start at sea level. Right now, wherever you are, you're experiencing pressure. The entire atmosphere of Earth is pressing down on you. All that air, from where you are up to the edge of space, has weight. That weight creates pressure. At sea level, this pressure is about 14.7 pounds per square inch. We call this one atmosphere. You don't feel it because the fluids in your body push outward with the same force. You're in balance. Now step into the ocean. Immediately you've added the weight of water to the weight of air, and water is much, much heavier than air. For every 33 feet you descend, the pressure increases by 1 full atmosphere. At 33 feet deep, you're experiencing 2 atmospheres of pressure. The air in your lungs wants to compress. Your ears need to equalize. You can feel this. At 66 feet, it's 3 atmospheres. At 99 feet, 4 atmospheres. This is where human diving gets serious. Nitrogen narcosis can set in around 100 feet, because the pressure forces nitrogen from your air supply into your bloodstream in ways it doesn't at the surface. Commercial divers might work down to 300 feet with special equipment. That's about 10 atmospheres of pressure. 10 times what you're experiencing right now. It takes extensive training and careful decompression to survive, but 300 feet is nothing. The ocean keeps going. At 12,000 feet, the average ocean depth, the pressure is about 380 atmospheres, 380 times what you're experiencing right now. Every square inch of surface experiences the equivalent of 5,600 pounds of force. That's like having 3 full-sized cars stacked on your thumbnail. That's like being crushed in the jaws of a great white shark, which can bite with a force of about 4,000 pounds per square inch. Except the pressure isn't just on your thumbnail, it's on every square inch of your body, from every direction, constantly. The Mariana Trench, the deepest point on Earth, sits at nearly 36,000 feet down, almost 7 miles. Down there, the pressure reaches approximately 1,086 atmospheres, more than 1,000 times the pressure at sea level, 15,750 pounds per square inch. To put that in perspective, imagine the weight of about 50 jumbo jets concentrated on an area the size of a car. If you were teleported to the Mariana Trench without protection, you wouldn't just be crushed, you would be compacted. Your lungs would collapse, your eardrums would rupture, air spaces in your body would implode. It would be instantaneous and total. Engineers have to design special submersibles just to visit these depths. The sphere that holds humans has to be made of titanium several inches thick. It has to be perfectly spherical because that shape distributes pressure evenly. Any weakness, any flaw, any crack, and the sphere would implode catastrophically. In 2023, this exact scenario occurred when a submersible attempting to visit the Titanic wreck imploded, killing everyone inside instantly. The Titanic sits at 12,400 feet, less than half the depth of the Mariana Trench. The fact that anything survives down there seems impossible, and yet life thrives at these depths. Not just survives, thrives. There are fish swimming in the Mariana Trench, in the deepest water on Earth, where the pressure would crush any land animal instantly. So how do they do it? How does life exist where physics says it shouldn't? The answer is both simple and profound. Deep-sea creatures don't fight the pressure, they match it. Their bodies don't have air pockets. Their tissues are filled with incompressible fluids. Their cells contain special molecules called piezolites that help proteins maintain their structure under extreme compression. They've evolved cellular machinery that works not despite the pressure but because of it. For them, this isn't extreme. This is normal. This is home. If you brought a deep-sea fish to the surface, it would die. Not from lack of pressure exactly, but from the rapid change. They're adapted to a world where the weight of the ocean is constant, crushing, omnipresent. Take that away and they can't function. This is what I mean by another planet. Imagine an alien world where the atmosphere is so dense that it exerts 1,000 times the pressure of Earth's atmosphere, where any Earth organism would be crushed in milliseconds, where walking on the surface would require a pressure suit as robust as a spacecraft. We've found that world. It's here. It's the deep ocean. In 1977, scientists made a discovery that fundamentally changed our understanding of how life works. They were exploring the Galapagos Rift, a volcanic ridge in the deep Pacific Ocean, using the submersible Alvin. They were there to study the geology of the seafloor, to understand how tectonic plates move and how new ocean crust forms. They weren't looking for life. At these depths, around 7,000 feet down, the prevailing scientific wisdom was that life would be sparse. Maybe some fish passing through, maybe some creatures feeding on the occasional dead organism that drifted down from the surface, but nothing substantial, nothing thriving. They were wrong. As Alvin descended into the Rift Valley, its lights revealed something no one expected. The rocky seafloor was covered with life, not scattered individuals barely hanging on, not a dead zone with a few scavengers, dense, thriving, bizarre communities unlike anything anyone had seen before. There were giant clams, some over a foot long. There were mussels clustered by the thousands. There were white crabs scuttling across the rocks, and there were tube worms. 8-foot-tall tube worms, red as blood, swaying in the current like some grotesque underwater forest. The scientists aboard were stunned. This was the deep ocean, miles from sunlight, under crushing pressure, in near-freezing water. Where was all this life getting its energy? What was feeding this ecosystem? On land, on the surface ocean, everywhere else on Earth, the answer is always the sun. Plants capture solar energy through photosynthesis. Animals eat the plants or eat other animals. Energy flows from the sun through the ecosystem, but there's no sun down here. So what was powering this underwater oasis? The answer came from studying the water itself. The rift they were exploring sat on a crack in Earth's crust. Cold seawater was seeping down through fissures in the rock, getting heated by magma chambers below, and then erupting back out through vents in the seafloor. These hydrothermal vents, they discovered, were spewing water superheated to temperatures as high as 400 degrees Celsius, more than 750 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt lead. The water was also loaded with chemicals, minerals dissolved from the rocks below, hydrogen sulfide, methane, iron, copper, zinc. To most life, this chemical soup is toxic. Hydrogen sulfide is the stuff that makes rotten eggs smell bad. It's poisonous to animals. But to certain bacteria living around these vents, hydrogen sulfide is food. Not food in the sense of something to digest, but food in the sense of a source of chemical energy. These bacteria have evolved a process called chemosynthesis. Instead of using light energy to convert carbon dioxide into sugar like plants do, they use chemical energy from hydrogen sulfide. They oxidize the hydrogen sulfide, extract energy from that reaction, and use that energy to build organic molecules from carbon dioxide in the water. Think about what this means. These bacteria are using chemistry instead of sunlight. They're creating organic matter, creating food, creating the base of a food chain, without any input from the sun. This was revolutionary. This rewrote biology textbooks. Before 1977, life on Earth was thought to be ultimately dependent on the sun. But these vent ecosystems proved otherwise. Life can exist, can thrive. based purely on chemistry, based on the heat of the planet itself. And the giant tube worms, those 8-foot-tall scarlet creatures, they don't have mouths, they don't have digestive systems, they don't eat anything. Instead, they have a specialized organ called a trophosome, and that organ is packed with chemosynthetic bacteria. The tube worms absorb hydrogen sulfide from the vent water through their blood, transport it to the bacteria in their trophosome, and the bacteria convert it into organic molecules that the tube worm absorbs as food. It's a symbiotic relationship. The bacteria get a safe home and a steady supply of hydrogen sulfide. The tube worm gets food manufactured internally by its bacterial partners. This is alien. This is genuinely alien. A creature with no mouth, no gut, that feeds on poison by hosting bacteria that turn toxins into sugar using chemical energy from Earth's core. If we discovered this on another planet, we would call it proof of alien life. But it's here, at the bottom of our ocean. And it's not just tube worms. There are vent clams and mussels with similar bacterial symbionts. There are vent shrimp with specialized gill chambers housing chemosynthetic bacteria. There are snails that graze on bacterial mats coating the rocks. There are fish and crabs that hunt the smaller creatures. An entire ecosystem, completely independent of the sun, powered by the chemical energy of volcanic vents on the seafloor. Since that first discovery in 1977, we've found hundreds of hydrothermal vent sites around the world. They exist wherever tectonic plates are spreading apart or colliding. Mid-ocean ridges, back-arc basins, deep trenches. Each site hosts similar but distinct communities, different species of tube worms, different chemosynthetic bacteria, different predators and scavengers, the same principle, chemosynthesis, but expressed in different forms depending on the local chemistry and temperature and geology. Here's the thing that keeps scientists up at night. If life can exist here, based purely on chemistry, with no need for sunlight, where else might it exist? Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, has an ocean beneath its icy surface. That ocean might have hydrothermal vents. Enceladus, a moon of Saturn, shoots geysers of water into space from an underground ocean. Could there be life there, using the same chemosynthetic processes we found at Earth's deep-sea vents? The deep ocean isn't just another planet here on Earth. It might be a preview of life on actual other planets. If you descended into the deep ocean during the day, there would come a point, around 200 meters down, where the last traces of sunlight vanish. Below that, darkness, total darkness, except it's not. Because if you turn off your lights and let your eyes adjust, after a few minutes, you'd start to see something. Not sunlight, not any light from above, but lights from the animals themselves. Flashes, pulses, glows, blues and greens and occasional reds. The deep ocean is filled with living light. Bioluminescence, the production of light by living organisms, is everywhere in the deep sea. Studies have found that approximately 75 to 90% of the creatures living between 600 and 3,300 feet deep can produce their own light. This isn't rare. This isn't unusual. This is the norm. In the deep ocean, being able to glow is as common as having eyes. Let me put that statistic in perspective. On land, bioluminescence is rare. Fireflies, glowworms, certain fungi, a handful of species. But in the deep sea, it's almost universal. Most jellyfish glow. Most squid glow. Most fish glow. The bristle-mouthed fish, the most abundant vertebrate on Earth, glows. Comb jellies glow. Worms glow. Even some sharks glow. The deep ocean is a light show, a living constellation, except instead of stars, it's animals, and instead of millions of miles away, they're right there in the water with you. How do they do it? The chemistry is elegant. Most bioluminescent creatures produce light through a reaction between two substances, luciferin and luciferase. Luciferin is a molecule that emits light when oxidized. Luciferase is an enzyme that catalyzes the oxidation. When luciferin reacts with oxygen in the presence of luciferase, it releases energy in the form of photons. Light. Almost all the energy goes into light rather than heat, making this one of the most efficient light-producing reactions known. Scientists call it cold light. Different species use slightly different versions of luciferin and luciferase, which is why bioluminescence has evolved independently at least 40 separate times in marine organisms. Evolution kept inventing light because light is useful in the dark, it's advantageous, it solves problems. And what problems does light solve in the deep ocean? First, hunting. The deep-sea anglerfish, that nightmare creature with the massive head and sharp teeth, has a glowing lure extending from its forehead. The lure contains bioluminescent bacteria that glow continuously. In the darkness, the lure looks like a small glowing organism, something tasty, something worth investigating. Other fish, drawn to the light, swim closer, and then the anglerfish strikes, its jaws shooting forward, its sharp teeth impaling the prey. The light is a trap. Viperfish do something similar. They have light-producing organs called photophores arranged along their bodies. The lights attract smaller fish and squid. The viperfish, with its long fang-like teeth, lunges out of the darkness and catches prey drawn in by the lights. In a world without sun, making your own light gives you a hunting advantage. Second, camouflage. This seems counterintuitive. How does glowing help you hide? But here's the thing. Even in the deep ocean, there's a tiny bit of downwelling light during the day at certain depths. Not enough to see by, but enough to create a faint glow from above. If you're a fish swimming at that depth, you cast a shadow when seen from below. Predators hunting from underneath can spot your silhouette against that faint downwelling light. Some fish have solved this with a trick called counter-illumination. They have photophores on their undersides that glow just enough to match the faint light from above. When a predator looks up, instead of seeing a dark silhouette, they see a fish that blends in with the background light. It's camouflage by making yourself glow at exactly the right brightness. Lanternfish do this. They have precise control over their bioluminescence, dimming or brightening to match the ambient light level. It's like having built-in dimmer switches for stealth. Third, communication. Finding a mate in the deep ocean is hard. You're in a vast, dark, three-dimensional space with relatively low population density. How do you signal to others of your species? Bioluminescence. Many species have distinctive patterns of light organs. Each species of lanternfish, for example, has photophores arranged in a specific pattern on its body. This pattern works like a species-specific light-up sign. In the darkness, a lanternfish can recognize others of its own species by their light pattern. It's a mating signal. It's how they find each other. Some squid take this further. The Hawaiian bobtail squid has a light organ in its body cavity that gets colonized by bioluminescent bacteria within hours of birth. The squid carefully regulates the bacteria, controlling how much light they produce. This light helps with camouflage through counter-illumination, but it also appears to play a role in squid-to-squid communication. Fourth, defense. When a deep-sea jellyfish is attacked, some species produce a brilliant flash of light. This flash, sudden and bright in the darkness, can startle a predator long enough for the jellyfish to escape. Other jellyfish take a different approach. The so-called alarm jellyfish, when threatened, produces a pulsing bioluminescent display that attracts other predators. It's calling for help, essentially, bringing in a bigger predator that might attack its attacker. It's a brilliant strategy. If you can't fight, make the predator think twice by summoning something even more dangerous. Some deep-sea shrimp eject bioluminescent mucus when threatened. They vomit light. The predator gets hit with a cloud of glowing particles and is momentarily blinded or confused, and the shrimp escapes into the darkness. Here's what makes all this remarkable. Bioluminescence in the deep ocean is the most common form of communication on Earth. Not vocal calls, not visual signals in sunlight, bioluminescence in the dark ocean. Most communication on this planet happens in a place humans almost never see, using a mechanism we can't naturally produce. The deep ocean is a light show, a dance of living lanterns, pulsing and flashing and glowing in patterns we're only beginning to decode. And here's the truly alien part. We still don't fully understand why so many species have evolved bioluminescence. We know some of the purposes, hunting and mating and defense, but there are species that glow and we have no idea why. The function remains mysterious. We're observing alien life using alien communication in an alien environment, and it's all happening just a few miles beneath the surface of our planet. If you were to catalogue the creatures living on the deep ocean floor, the result would look less like a nature documentary and more like a gallery of nightmares. These animals have evolved in an environment so different from the surface world that they've taken on shapes and features that seem designed to unsettle anyone familiar with life on land. Take the giant isopod. These creatures are related to pill bugs, those little armoured bugs you find under rocks in your garden. except giant isopods can grow to over 16 inches long. They're the size of a football. They have 7 pairs of legs, segmented armor plating, and large compound eyes. They scavenge the seafloor, feeding on dead fish and whales that sink from above. They can go years without eating, their metabolism slow to a crawl in the cold, deep water. When they do find food, they gorge themselves. There's a documented case of a giant isopod in captivity that went 5 years without eating and survived. 5 years. Then it died, and researchers couldn't determine if it starved or died of old age. Giant isopods are an example of deep-sea gigantism, a phenomenon where creatures in the deep ocean grow much larger than their shallow water or land relatives. We don't fully understand why this happens. It might be because there are fewer predators at depth, so growing large is safer. It might be because larger bodies can store more oxygen, which is scarce in deep water. It might be because metabolisms run slower in the cold, allowing creatures to live longer and grow bigger. Whatever the reason, the deep ocean produces giants. Then there's the barrel-eye fish, a creature so strange it almost defies description. This fish has a transparent head, not translucent, transparent. You can see right through the dome of its skull into the interior of its head, and inside that transparent dome are 2 tubular eyes pointing upward. The fish swims horizontally through the water, but its eyes point up, scanning for shadows and bioluminescence above. The 2 dark spots on what looks like the front of its face, those aren't eyes, those are olfactory organs. The actual eyes are inside the transparent head, green-tinted, staring upward. Scientists discovered this feature only recently. For decades, every barrel-eye specimen brought to the surface had a damaged head. We thought the transparent dome was an artifact of the decompression, the rapid pressure change destroying the structure. It wasn't until cameras on, remotely operated vehicles filmed barrel-eye fish alive in their natural habitat that we saw the transparent dome intact. These fish exist with a see-through skull housing upward-pointing eyes. It's biological engineering so alien that we literally didn't believe it was real when we first saw dead specimens. The gulper eel, also called the pelican eel, has a mouth that can unhinge and expand to many times the size of its body. The fish itself is mostly mouth and stomach with a long, whip-like tail. When it encounters prey, it opens its massive jaws and engulfs the entire organism, then slowly digests it over days or weeks. It's adapted to an environment where food is scarce and meals are infrequent. When you find food in the deep ocean, you eat as much as possible, even if that means swallowing something almost as large as yourself. The fang-toothed fish has teeth so large relative to its body that it can't fully close its mouth. The teeth are the largest relative to body size of any fish. When the fang-tooth closes its mouth, the teeth on the lower jaw fit into special sockets in the upper skull. Otherwise, the teeth would pierce its own brain. This fish lives in the midnight zone and bathypelagic zone, between 600 and 6,500 feet deep. It hunts by swimming through the darkness with its mouth open, hoping to impale anything it encounters on its massive fangs. Siphonophores, though not fish, are among the strangest creatures in the deep ocean. They look like single jellyfish-like animals, but they're actually colonies of thousands of genetically identical zooids, each specialized for a different function. Some zooids catch prey, some digest food, some reproduce, some provide propulsion. Together they act as one organism, but technically they're a floating colony. The largest siphonophore on record was 154 feet long and 49 feet in diameter, discovered off the coast of Australia. It was longer than a blue whale, longer than most buildings at all, and it was just drifting through the deep ocean, a single organism colony hunting in the darkness. The vampire squid, despite its name, doesn't suck blood, but it does look disturbing. When threatened, it inverts its body, pulling its webbed arms over its head like a cloak, exposing rows of fleshy spines. This makes it look larger and more threatening. If that doesn't work, it can eject a cloud of bioluminescent mucus that glows blue. The predator is blinded by the light, and the squid escapes. It's called the vampire squid because of its dark coloration and cloak-like arms, but it's actually a gentle scavenger that feeds on marine snow, the constant drift of dead organic matter sinking from the surface. The goblin shark is another creature that seems designed to unsettle. It has a long, flat snout extending forward from its head like a blade. Its jaws can shoot forward from its skull, a mechanism called jaw protrusion. When it detects prey, special, Ligaments snap the jaws outward, extending them several inches beyond the normal position of the mouth. The teeth are thin and needle-like, perfect for impaling soft-bodied prey. The goblin shark's skin is pinkish grey, almost translucent in some specimens, giving it a ghostly appearance. It lives at depths between 600 and 4,000 feet, rarely seen by humans. When specimens are brought to the surface, their colour fades and their jaws retract, making them look less bizarre, but in their natural state they're genuinely unsettling. The frilled shark is a living fossil, a species that has changed little in millions of years. It has 300 needle-sharp teeth arranged in 25 rows. Its body is eel-like, flexible, allowing it to snake through the water. The gills have frilly edges, giving the shark its name. What makes the frilled shark remarkable, beyond its appearance, is its reproduction. After mating, females carry their young for 3.5 years, one of the longest gestation periods of any vertebrate. Why so long? Researchers don't know for certain, but it might be related to the cold temperatures and slow metabolism of deep-sea life. Everything happens slowly in the deep ocean, even development. The stoplight looselip is one of the few deep-sea fish that can see red light. Most bioluminescence in the ocean is blue or green because those wavelengths travel farthest in water. Red light is absorbed quickly, which is why many deep-sea creatures are red-coloured. They appear black in the darkness, effectively invisible. But the stoplight looselip has evolved the ability to produce red bioluminescence and to see it. It uses chlorophyll-based pigments in its eyes, the same pigments plants use for photosynthesis, to detect red wavelengths. It's the only animal known to do this. The fish essentially has a red spotlight that it can use to illuminate prey without the prey knowing they're being lit up. It's biological stealth technology, and it gives the looselip a significant hunting advantage. Sea pigs are perhaps the most absurd-looking creatures in the deep ocean. They're a type of sea cucumber, but they have legs. Multiple small tube-like legs that they use to walk across the seafloor. They look like bloated, translucent pigs with too many legs. They feed by sifting through the mud of the seafloor, extracting organic particles. They often gather in large groups, dozens or hundreds of sea pigs clustered together, walking slowly across the bottom in what researchers call herds. Their movements are glacially slow, but they're methodical, covering areas of seafloor systematically, hoovering up anything edible. They're one of the most common creatures on the abyssal plains, these bizarre walking cucumbers, patiently sifting through sediment that's been accumulating for millions of years. The deep-sea dragonfish is another nightmare creature. It has a long, slender body and massive jaws filled with transparent teeth. The transparency is an adaptation. The teeth don't reflect light, making them invisible to prey. The dragonfish also has a bioluminescent barbel extending from its chin, a lure similar to the anglerfish but positioned differently. Some dragonfish species produce red bioluminescence, using the same stealth hunting technique as the stoplight looselip. They're ambush predators, floating in the darkness, invisible except for their lure, waiting for something to investigate. Then they strike with those transparent teeth, fast and precise. Each of these creatures is adapted to specific conditions on the deep sea floor. The pressure, the darkness, the cold, the scarcity of food, every bizarre feature, every nightmare-inducing trait is an elegant solution to survival in an environment humans can't naturally access. We look at them and see monsters, but they're not monsters. They're masterpieces of evolutionary engineering, each one perfectly suited to a world we find alien. It's not just the creatures that are alien. The landscape of the deep ocean floor is as strange and varied as any science fiction vision of an extraterrestrial world. If you could walk across it, if you could survive the pressure and the darkness and the cold, you would traverse terrain unlike anything on dry land. Start with the mountains. The mid-ocean ridge system is the longest mountain range on Earth, stretching over 40,000 miles around the globe. It's taller than the Himalayas in places, but it's underwater, hidden beneath miles of ocean. These mountains are volcanic, formed where tectonic plates pull apart and magma rises to fill the gap. The ridge system is constantly active, constantly creating new ocean floor. Lava erupts, rock solidifies, the seafloor spreads. This is where hydrothermal vents form, where those chemosynthetic ecosystems thrive. The mountains aren't smooth, they're fractured, faulted, covered in jagged lava formations. Black smokers, chimneys of mineral deposits, rise from the seafloor like industrial smokestacks. These chimneys form when superheated vent water, loaded with dissolved minerals, hits the cold seawater. The minerals precipitate out instantly, building up layers of sulfides and other compounds. Some chimneys grow to over 100 feet tall. They're fragile though. Earthquakes can topple them. New eruptions can bury them. The landscape here is dynamic, changing on timescales of years or even months. White smokers are similar but cooler. They emit water around 250 degrees Celsius instead of 400. The minerals they deposit are different, lighter in colour. The ecosystems around white smokers are different too, with different chemosynthetic bacteria, different symbiotic organisms. Then there are the trenches. While the mid-ocean ridges form where plates pull apart, trenches form where plates collide. One plate slides beneath another in a process called subduction. The edge of the subducting plate curves down into the mantle, creating a trench in the seafloor. These are the deepest points on Earth: the Mariana Trench, the Tonga Trench, the Philippine Trench, all exceeding 30,000 feet deep. The walls of these trenches are steep, sometimes nearly vertical. As you descend into a trench, the pressure increases beyond anywhere else on the planet. The water temperature drops to just above freezing. Oxygen levels are low, and yet life exists even here. Amphipods, shrimp-like crustaceans, thrive at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Snailfish have been filmed swimming at depths exceeding 26,000 feet. How they survive the pressure is still being studied, but they've evolved cellular mechanisms that keep their proteins functional even when crushed by more than 1,000 atmospheres of pressure. Submarine canyons cut through the continental shelves, carving gorges into the seafloor. These canyons can be thousands of feet deep and miles wide, carved by underwater avalanches called turbidity currents. Sediment and debris cascade down the slope, eroding the bottom, creating channels and gullies. The Monterey Canyon off the coast of California is deeper and larger than the Grand Canyon. It's a highway for nutrients and organic material flowing from the shallow coastal waters down into the deep sea. Ecosystems cluster along these canyons, feeding on the flow of material from above. Methane seeps and cold seeps are another type of deep-sea oasis. Unlike hydrothermal vents, which are hot, these are cold. Methane and hydrogen sulfides seep out of the seafloor through faults and fissures. The seeps aren't powered by volcanic heat, but by the decomposition of organic matter buried in the sediments or by geochemical processes deep in the crust. Chemosynthetic bacteria colonize these seeps just like they do at hydrothermal vents. Tube worms, clams, mussels, and other organisms cluster around the seeps, feeding on the bacteria or hosting bacterial symbionts. The seeps can last for thousands of years, much longer than most hydrothermal vents. This stability allows complex communities to develop. Researchers have found methane ice, frozen methane hydrate, forming mounds around some seeps. These mounds are inhabited by specialized organisms that can tolerate or even utilize the methane. It's an entirely different ecosystem from the vent communities, powered by a different chemistry, but equally alien, equally independent of the sun. And then there's the abyssal plain, the vast flat expanse that covers much of the deep ocean floor. It's the largest habitat on Earth, covering more area than all other habitats combined. It's flat because over millions of years, sediment from above has settled evenly, burying the underlying topography. The sediment is mostly the remains of microscopic organisms that lived in the surface waters and died, sinking slowly to the bottom. It accumulates at a rate of about 1/10 of an inch per 1,000 years. Over millions of years, this creates a layer hundreds of feet thick, a blanket of ancient dead organisms covering the rocky seafloor. Life on the abyssal plain is sparse compared to the vents and seeps, but it's there. Sea cucumbers crawl through the mud, eating sediment and extracting organic particles. Brittle stars creep across the bottom. Fish swim slowly overhead, conserving energy, waiting for the rare meal. Everything here is adapted to scarcity, to the long wait between meals, to the near-freezing temperatures and the crushing pressure. It's a desert, an underwater desert, where life moves slowly and waits patiently. The deep ocean floor is not one environment. It's a collection of environments as different from each other as a rainforest is from a desert on land. Vents, seeps, canyons, trenches, abyssal plains, mid-ocean ridges. Each has its own geology, its own chemistry, its own community of organisms, and we've barely explored any of it. The landscape of the deep ocean is an alien world, varied and complex and largely unknown. One of the most alien features of the deep ocean is the temperature extremes that exist side by side, sometimes separated by just a few feet. This doesn't happen on land. Nowhere on land can you have near freezing temperatures, and temperatures hot enough to melt lead existing within arm's reach of each other. But in the deep ocean, at hydrothermal vents, this is normal. Let's start with the baseline. Most of the deep ocean is cold. Not just cool, cold. The temperature at the abyssal depths typically ranges from 1 to 4 degrees Celsius, about 34 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit. This is just above freezing for seawater. Seawater freezes at about -2 degrees Celsius because the dissolved salt lowers the freezing point. The deep ocean hovers just slightly above this threshold. It's cold enough that your body would lose heat rapidly if you were somehow suspended in it. Without a thermal suit, you would develop hypothermia in minutes. This cold is consistent. It doesn't vary much with season or time of day because the deep ocean is insulated from the surface by miles of water. The sun can't warm it. The seasons don't affect it. It's a stable, frigid environment, and it has been for millions of years. Life adapted to this cold. Metabolisms run slowly. Chemical reactions that would be quick in warm water are sluggish in the cold. Fish move slowly, conserving energy. Growth is slow, reproduction is slow, everything is tuned to the cold. Then you get to a hydrothermal vent. Seawater is seeping down through cracks in the crust, being heated by proximity to magma chambers deep below. When it erupts back out through vents, it can be superheated to 400 degrees Celsius, about 750 degrees Fahrenheit. This is above the normal boiling point of water, but the pressure at these depths is so great that the water doesn't boil. It stays liquid, just incredibly, dangerously hot. Hot enough to melt lead, hot enough to flash fry any organism instantly. But the hot water doesn't stay hot for long. As soon as it exits the vent and hits the surrounding cold seawater, it cools rapidly. Within a few inches, the temperature can drop from 400 degrees to 50 degrees. Within a few feet, it's closer to the ambient cold of the deep ocean. This creates a steep thermal gradient, a rapid change in temperature over a short distance, and life inhabits this gradient. Some organisms live right at the edge of the vent, in water that's warm but not scalding. Tube worms, for example, can tolerate water temperatures up to about 40 degrees Celsius, roughly 104 degrees Fahrenheit. They position themselves in the sweet spot where the vent water is cooled enough to be survivable, but is still warm enough to deliver a steady supply of hydrogen sulfide. Too close to the vent and they'd cook. Too far away, and the hydrogen sulfide concentration drops too low to sustain their bacterial symbionts. They live in the gradient. The bacteria themselves are even more remarkable. Some species of thermophilic, heat-loving bacteria can survive and grow in water temperatures above 100 degrees Celsius. Pyrolobus fumari, a species of archaea isolated from a hydrothermal vent chimney, grows optimally at 106 degrees Celsius. It can reproduce at temperatures up to 113 degrees Celsius, the highest temperature known to be compatible with life. This is boiling water, or would be at normal pressure. These microbes are living, growing, reproducing in conditions that would sterilize most life. They don't just survive the heat, they require it. If you cool Pyrolobus fumari down below 90 degrees Celsius, it stops growing. Below 80 degrees, it can't survive. It needs the heat to function. Its proteins, its cell membranes, its DNA, all are adapted to high temperatures. At normal temperatures, its cellular machinery doesn't work properly. The heat that kills most life is the only environment where this organism can live. This creates a layered ecosystem around vents. The hottest zones, right at the vent opening, are inhabited by hyperthermophilic archaea and bacteria. Slightly cooler zones host other bacteria and the symbiotic relationships with tube worms and other vent organisms. Farther out, where the vent water is mixed thoroughly with cold seawater, you get more typical deep-sea fauna. Crabs, fish, octopuses, all benefiting from the abundance of life supported by the vent chemistry, but living in cooler water. The organisms living in these thermal gradients face unique challenges. Their proteins have to remain stable across temperature ranges that would denature proteins in most organisms. Vent tube worms, for example, can extend part of their body into warmer water to access hydrogen sulfide, while keeping their main body mass in cooler water to avoid heat damage. It's a delicate balancing act. The tube worm's blood contains special hemoglobin that can bind both oxygen and hydrogen sulfide, transporting both to the symbiotic bacteria in the trophosome. This hemoglobin works across a range of temperatures, from the near-freezing ambient water to the warmer water near the vents. Vent crabs and shrimp show similar adaptations. Some vent shrimp have heat shock proteins that help them survive brief exposures to high temperatures. These proteins act like molecular chaperones, helping other proteins maintain their proper shape even when heat tries to unfold them. It's a backup system, a biological insurance policy against temperature spikes. The shrimp can venture closer to the vent than most organisms, grazing on bacterial mats growing in the warm zones, then retreat to cooler water to digest their meal. The Archaeon Methanopyrus candleri, found in vent chimneys, produces methane as a byproduct of its metabolism. It thrives at temperatures around 98 degrees Celsius, nearly boiling. Its name literally means methane fire, reflecting the conditions it inhabits. Its cell membranes are constructed differently from those of most organisms, with special lipids that remain fluid and functional at high temperatures. At room temperature, these membranes would be too rigid to work properly. The organism is literally adapted to heat at a cellular level. This isn't just an interesting curiosity. This has practical applications. Enzymes from thermophilic organisms are used in industrial processes that require high temperatures. The polymerase enzyme used in PCR, the technique that amplifies DNA and is fundamental to modern biology and medicine, was originally isolated from a thermophilic bacterium found in hot springs. Similar enzymes from deep-sea vent organisms are being studied for biotechnology applications. These creatures aren't just surviving extremes, they're thriving in them, and their biochemistry is teaching us new ways to solve engineering problems. This isn't just an interesting curiosity, this has profound implications. If life on Earth can adapt to exist in both near-freezing and superheated water, if microbes can thrive in boiling acidic soup, then life on other planets might be much more adaptable than we thought. Europa's subsurface ocean might be cold, but if it has hydrothermal vents, those vents could host life similar to what we find in Earth's deep ocean. Enceladus shoots geysers of water into space from an underground ocean. Analysis of that water shows organic molecules and hydrogen, signs of hydrothermal activity. Could there be life in Enceladus's ocean, clustering around vents, feeding on chemistry, thriving in conditions we once thought uninhabitable? The deep ocean tells us it's possible. Here's the paradox: the deep ocean is both incredibly close and almost impossibly distant. It's right here, covering most of our planet's surface, yet we've explored less of it than we have the surface of Mars. Why is it so hard to reach? The answer is pressure, primarily. Going into space is dangerous, but the biggest challenge is getting there. Once you're in space, you're in a low-pressure, low-gravity environment. Your spacecraft contains 1 atmosphere of pressure and protects you from the vacuum outside. The pressure difference is 1 atmosphere, roughly 14.7 pounds per square inch. Going into the deep ocean, you face the opposite problem. Every 33 feet deeper you go, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere. At the average ocean depth, you're dealing with a pressure difference of nearly 400 atmospheres. At the deepest point, over 1,000 atmospheres. Your submersible has to maintain 1 atmosphere inside while withstanding 1,000 atmospheres outside. The forces trying to crush the hull are immense. This requires extraordinary engineering. The human-occupied submersibles that can reach extreme depths are small, cramped spheres made of titanium alloy several inches thick. Alvin, one of the most famous deep-sea submersibles, has been diving since the 1960s. It's been upgraded multiple times. The current version, upgraded in 2021, can reach 6,500 meters, about 21,000 feet. This gives access to 99% of the ocean floor, because most of the ocean is shallower than this. But even Alvin, after all these decades of refinement, can only carry 2 scientists plus a pilot. The sphere is tiny. You're crushed together with equipment, breathing recycled air for dives that can last 12 hours or more. The deepest diving manned submersible currently operational is the DSV Limiting Factor, privately owned, which has reached the deepest point in all 5 oceans. The pressure hull is made of titanium, shaped to distribute force evenly. Every component has to be tested and retested because a failure at depth is catastrophic. In 2023, the Titan submersible, attempting to reach the Titanic wreck at 12,000 feet, imploded during descent, killing all 5 people aboard instantly. The investigation suggested a failure in the hull, possibly a carbon fibre section that couldn't withstand the cyclic pressure stress over multiple dives. It's a stark reminder that deep ocean exploration is genuinely dangerous. Because of the danger and the cost, most deep-sea exploration is done with remotely operated vehicles, ROVs. These are unmanned robots tethered to a ship on the surface. They have cameras, lights, manipulator arms for collecting samples. They can stay down for days if needed. If something goes wrong, you lose the robot, but no one dies. Institutions like the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution operate ROVs like Jason, which has made thousands of dives and discovered countless new species and geological features. Autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, are also used. These are untethered robots that follow pre-programmed routes, mapping the seafloor, taking measurements, sometimes collecting samples. They're useful for surveying large areas quickly, but they can't react to unexpected findings the way a piloted submersible or ROV can. If an AUV passes over something interesting, it keeps going on its programmed path. The cost of operating these vehicles is significant. Research vessels capable of deploying deep-sea submersibles or ROVs cost tens of thousands of dollars per day to operate. The equipment itself costs millions. A single dive might yield samples from a few hundred square meters of seafloor. It's slow, expensive, and limited in scope. This is why we've explored so little. It's not lack of interest. It's the sheer difficulty and expense of getting there. Compare this to Mars. NASA's rovers, Curiosity and Perseverance, have explored miles of Martian surface, covering orders of magnitude more ground than we've covered on the deep ocean floor. The rovers are expensive, yes, but once they're there, they keep working for years with no additional travel cost. The deep ocean requires ships, submersibles, support crews, all continuously operating for every dive. It's harder in many ways than space exploration, and yet, when we do go down, when we do make those dives, we discover things that change our understanding of biology, geology, chemistry. We find new species on nearly every expedition. We find geological features we didn't know existed. In 2025, researchers discovered deep-sea coral reefs in the Galapagos Marine Preserve that had never been documented before. In May 2025, scientists observed a rare seafloor eruption at a hydrothermal vent, capturing the dynamic process of vent formation in real time. Every dive reveals something. The question isn't whether there's more to discover, there obviously is. The question is how to make exploration more accessible, more affordable, more frequent. Some researchers are developing low-cost underwater robots that could be deployed by smaller institutions or even community organizations. The idea is to democratize ocean exploration, make it something more than just a handful of well-funded expeditions per year. Because right now, the pace of discovery is limited not by the ocean's secrets, but by our ability to look. The history of deep-sea exploration is a history of being wrong and then being astounded. In the 1800s, scientists thought the deep ocean was lifeless, a sterile abyss. The HMS Challenger expedition in the 1870s proved otherwise, discovering thousands of new species. In the mid-1900s, we thought the deep sea was mostly homogeneous, a dark desert with sparse life. The discovery of hydrothermal vents in 1977 shattered that assumption. Every time we think we understand the deep ocean, it surprises us, and it's still surprising us. In 2024, researchers discovered something called dark oxygen production in the deep Pacific. They found that polymetallic nodules, metal-rich rocks sitting on the abyssal plain, were producing oxygen through electrochemical reactions, not photosynthesis, not biological processes. Electrochemical reactions between the nodules and seawater. This challenges fundamental assumptions about how oxygen is produced on Earth and how life might have originated. If chemical reactions can produce oxygen without biology, does that change our understanding of early Earth's atmosphere? Does it change how we think about life on other planets? In August 2025, a Chinese research team using a submersible discovered extensive chemosynthesis-based communities at depths around 31,000 feet in the Pacific Ocean trenches. These are the deepest such communities ever documented, thriving in the most extreme conditions on Earth. The discovery included tube worms, mollusks, and other organisms living in the Hadal Zone, the deepest part of the ocean below 20,000 feet. We thought we knew the limits of where chemosynthetic ecosystems could exist. We were wrong. Recent expeditions keep finding new species. A 2025 expedition to the Southern Ocean discovered a carnivorous sponge dubbed the deathball sponge, along with iridescent scale worms, rare gastropods adapted to hydrothermal habitats, and zombie worms, creatures with no mouth or gut that bore into bones and feed through bacterial symbionts. An expedition to submarine canyons off the coast of Argentina in 2025 documented over 60 suspected new species, including translucent squid, pale pink lobsters, and ghostly fish that look like characters from a fever dream. The pace of discovery hasn't slowed. If anything, it's accelerating as technology improves and more institutions invest in deep-sea exploration. High-definition cameras allow us to see details we missed before. Advanced DNA sequencing lets us identify species from tiny tissue samples. Better mapping technology reveals geological features that were invisible to previous surveys. Each technological advance opens new windows into the deep. But here's the sobering part. Even with all this progress, we've explored less than 0.001% of the deep-sea floor. That statistic bears repeating because it's almost incomprehensible. Less than 1/1000th of 1%. If you took 1 million pictures of different spots on the deep ocean floor, we've looked at fewer than 10 of them. The other 999,990 plus remain unseen. What's down there? We don't know. We can guess based on what we've found so far. More hydrothermal vents certainly, with their bizarre chemosynthetic ecosystems. More methane seeps. More species we've never seen before. But there could also be things we haven't imagined yet. Geological formations we didn't predict. Ecosystems based on chemistry we haven't considered. The ocean has surprised us before. It will surprise us again. Scientists estimate there may be between 700,000 and 1 million species in the ocean, and roughly 2/3 of them haven't been discovered or officially described yet. Almost 2,000 new marine species are formally accepted by the scientific community each year, and that's with the limited exploration we're currently doing. If we ramped up exploration, if we had more submersibles, more ROVs, more funding for expeditions, that number would increase dramatically. The deep ocean is a reservoir of unknown biodiversity, unknown chemistry, unknown geology. It's an alien world we've barely glimpsed, and it's all happening right here, right now, just below the surface of the planet we live on. You might be wondering why any of this matters. Why spend millions exploring the deep ocean when there are problems on land that need solving? Why care about tube worms and bioluminescent jellyfish and bacterial mats on volcanic vents? The answer has several layers. First, the deep ocean is the largest ecosystem on Earth. It covers more area than all land ecosystems combined. It plays a critical role in global climate regulation, absorbing about 90% of the excess heat and 30% of the carbon dioxide released by human activities. What happens in the deep ocean affects the entire planet. We can't understand Earth's climate system without understanding the deep ocean. Second, the organisms living in extreme deep-sea environments are teaching us about the limits and possibilities of life. Bacteria that thrive at 100 degrees Celsius have enzymes that work at high temperatures, which has applications in industrial processes and medicine. The chemicals produced by bioluminescent organisms have been used to develop medical imaging techniques and biosensors. The proteins that allow deep-sea fish to function under extreme pressure are being studied for insights into how proteins fold and maintain their structure, which is relevant to understanding diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's where misfolded proteins play a role. Third, the deep ocean is where we're learning about the origins of life. The discovery of hydrothermal vents and chemosynthesis didn't just show us a new type of ecosystem. It provided a possible answer to one of the biggest questions in science. How did life begin? Early Earth's atmosphere probably didn't have much oxygen. The surface was bombarded by radiation from the sun and from space. But deep ocean vents, shielded by miles of water, providing chemical energy and minerals and a stable environment, might have been the perfect place for the first life to emerge. The bacteria at modern vents might be descendants of Earth's very first organisms, using the same basic chemistry that started it all billions of years ago. Fourth, as we consider life beyond Earth, the deep ocean provides the closest analogue we have. If we find life on Europa or Enceladus, it will probably look more like deep-sea vent organisms than anything on land. It might use chemosynthesis. It might thrive in darkness under high pressure and cold water near hot vents. Understanding deep sea life on Earth prepares us to recognize and understand life elsewhere. Fifth, and perhaps most importantly, there's intrinsic value in knowledge. Humans are curious. We want to understand the world. The deep ocean is part of our world, a huge part, and we know almost nothing about it. That's worth addressing for its own sake, independent of practical applications. Understanding is its own reward. But there's also an urgent practical concern. We're already impacting the deep ocean before we've even explored it. Deep-sea mining is being proposed to extract polymetallic nodules and mineral deposits from the seafloor. These are the same nodules that were recently found to produce dark oxygen. We don't know what removing them would do to the ecosystem, but we're considering doing it anyway because the nodules contain valuable metals. Fishing trawls scrape the seafloor, destroying habitats we haven't even documented. Climate change is altering ocean chemistry and temperature even at depth, changing conditions that have been stable for millions of years. We're changing the deep ocean, but we don't know what we're changing. It's like bulldozing a rainforest before we've catalogued the species that live there. We might be destroying ecosystems, eliminating species, disrupting processes we don't understand, all before we even know what's there. This seems, at best, short-sighted. The deep ocean matters. It's not separate from the surface world. It's connected to everything. The chemistry of the vents influences ocean composition. The organisms of the abyss are part of global food webs. The processes happening in the darkness affect the atmosphere, the climate, the planet. We can't understand Earth without understanding the deep ocean, and right now, we don't. We've explored about 70% of the surface of Mars using satellites, rovers, and landers. We've mapped the far side of the Moon. We've sent probes to the outer planets and beyond the edge of the solar system. And all of that is incredible, genuinely awe-inspiring. But we've explored less than 1% of the deep ocean floor visually. We know more about the surface of other worlds than we do about most of our own planet. Think about that for a moment. The ocean floor is right here. It's not millions of miles away. It's not separated from us by the vacuum of space. It's just down there, beneath the waves, covering most of our planet, and it's almost completely unknown to us. What we have seen suggests the deep ocean is as alien as any environment in our solar system. Creatures that glow in the dark, ecosystems powered by chemistry instead of sunlight, fish with transparent heads and upward-pointing eyes, bacteria that thrive in boiling acidic water, pressures that would crush any land animal, darkness that has never seen the sun, landscapes of volcanic vents, and underwater mountains and trenches deeper than any canyon on land. If we found even one of these features on another planet, it would be headline news around the world. But because it's here, because it's on Earth, we somehow take it for granted. We shouldn't. The deep ocean is genuinely alien. It's a world operating under different rules, hosting life that evolved independently of the sun, displaying biodiversity we're only beginning to catalogue. And here's the thing that should keep us up at night, in a good way. We've only just started looking. Every expedition finds new species. Every dive reveals features we didn't predict. The deep ocean has surprised us continuously for over a century of exploration. It showed us chemosynthesis when we thought all life depended on the sun. It showed us bioluminescence as the primary form of communication on Earth. It showed us creatures adapted to extremes we thought were uninhabitable. What else is down there? What else are we going to find? The frontier isn't just out in space. It's right here, beneath the surface of the ocean. And unlike space, which is vast and mostly empty, the deep ocean is packed with life, with chemistry, with geology, with processes we don't understand. It's the largest unexplored frontier on Earth, and it's waiting. When you look at the ocean, you see a surface, waves, maybe some birds, boats passing by. But beneath that surface is another world, more alien than most science fiction, a world of living lights in total darkness, a world where the rules of biology are rewritten, a world we've barely glimpsed. So the next time you see the ocean, or even just think about it, remember what's down there. Remember the tube worms feeding on poison through bacterial partnerships. Remember the bioluminescent jellyfish pulsing in the darkness. Remember the crushing pressure and the superheated vents and the creatures that look like nightmares but are actually elegant solutions to survival in an impossible environment. Remember that you're looking at the surface of another planet, one that happens to share the same globe as the land we live on. The deep ocean is Earth's alien world, and we've only just started to explore it. If you found this journey into the depths worthwhile, a like or subscribe helps me make more explorations like this. And remember, the next time you think about alien life, about other worlds, about the boundaries of what's possible, think about the deep ocean. Because the most alien environment we know isn't on another planet. It's right here. It's been here all along, and it's waiting for us to look deeper.